All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? And welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. Of course, I'm your tour guide around the swag, see what else coming at you. And we're just gonna do a little video today, man. I just wanted to kind of take a look at where some of these guys stand in terms of individual numbers and reaching milestones like 100 yards rushing. I mean, like 1,000 yards rushing. You know, 2,500 yards passing, 1,000 yard receiving, things like that. 100 tackles. I just wanted to kind of see where guys are stacking up because every so often we'll have years where you have two or three guys cross the 1K mark in rushing. You might have a couple guys go over 1,000 in receiving. Maybe a guy go over 3,000 in passing. So I just kind of wanted to see where guys were at right now, and who can get across those thresholds before the season ends. So we're gonna kind of go through that pretty quickly, and also I'm gonna share my thoughts on who I think at this point should be in consideration for offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, and like newcomer of the year, freshman of the year is like a lock to me. So, but we'll go over all of that and just get in, get out, and do what we do. So, with that being said, man, we do have our Week 12 pick'em up. Link will be in the description. It'll also be on my Twitter as a pinned tweet, which is Swag Talk 76. Also on my Instagram and Facebook, which are both Swag Talk. Don't forget to like the video, comment, and share and hit that subscription button, man, so you can become a part of the Swag Talk family. And hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to when videos like this drop. It's not on my scheduled days. All those live shows that we do on Saturdays that we always decide at the last minute to do. So you can always know when those videos drop by hitting that notification bell. So with that being said, our upcoming schedule for the week is week 12 preview coming tomorrow. Our Swag Smoke episode coming on Thursday, live 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and our week 12 recap coming on Sunday with a possible live show on Saturday. Just depends on how everything goes throughout the week. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this. We're gonna start off with the 1,000 yard rushing club. Right now, we have one guy who is pretty much barring anything catastrophic happening is gonna cross that mark, and he should cross it. And he could possibly cross it this week, but he definitely cross it by the end of the regular season, and that's Herb Mulligan. He only needs 104 yards to cross 1,000 yards on the season, so he's averaging 112. But he's facing a tough Bama State defense this weekend, so I don't know how much he's gonna have in terms of yardage, but with a big game, he could get it. Otherwise, he'll probably get it against Alcorn the following week. But he's pretty much the only guy that's, I would say, I don't like to say a lock because, like you say, anything can happen between now and the end of the season. But he's the closest thing to a lock that we have. And then after that, we have four guys that have over 600 yards rushing. So you're looking at some pretty big days for some of these guys to get to that point. A guy like Kobe Dillon, he has 617 yards right now, but Southern has the opportunity to play 3 games, and if he was to get hot across those 3 games, he could possibly make it. But it's kind of a long shot. Xavier Vaughn is probably Xavier. I would say Xavier Vaughn and Donovan Eaglin are probably the closest guys who I think could possibly get there. Eaglin is at 669 yards, and he has 3 games left. So he plays against Grambling this weekend, FAMU, and Valley. So it's not the easiest defenses to move the ball on in those first 2 games, but he could have a huge game against Valley. I mean, he had 145 on Saturday against Pine Bluff. So, he's a guy that kind of runs hot and cold at times, but that's the way the offense kind of is with the running game in terms of who gets the carries that day. But he could possibly get that. Xavier Vaughn, another guy who has 2, possibly 3 games left. He could possibly get there. But again, you're looking at in his case, probably 2 games against Jackson State if they were to make the championship game. So that's kind of dicey there. but he's a guy who can get it if if he got hot. He has 676 yards, so it's possible that he can get the. All four of those guys have an opportunity to cross the 750-yard mark before season's end. So that's still to me a pretty solid season. So I'm looking at the one guy for sure to get to 1K, and everybody else in the top five and rushing will probably cross 750, unless they just don't have any good games between now and the end of the season. Um, I would throw Quintrell Quinn in that mark, but TSU has been not running the ball well the last few weeks, and they've been using a ton of backs, and he's at 480 yards. So he would need like he would need a decent couple of decent games to close out the season to get to 750, but he could get to 500. Obviously, needing on a 20 if he's able to get there. Other than that, most you got a few guys that can get to 500, and that's that. But we've had a couple years where we've had two or three guys get to 1,000. I think this year we probably just gonna only have the one, because you're looking at some really big games to get to the 1,000-yard mark from everybody else. But it's a still solid group of guys running the ball this season, and you're seeing a lot of teams use multiple guys to get to those points. And it's also interesting that a team like Alcorn has two guys in the top four, I mean the top five of rushing yardage, because they're gonna probably eat some yardage from each other unless they have huge team rushing games. But they've been a really really good rushing team, and four out of the top five are on teams um, that are ranked pretty highly in rushing as a team. So they have more opportunities to get that going, and that's going to help them out over the course of the rest of the season, because their offense is dictated to run the ball, and so they'll all be able to have those opportunities to move the ball on the ground. Like Jackson State leads the league in rushing, Alcorn second, Alabama and them is third, and so they have three guys there, and Southern's fifth. So those are all teams who run the ball a lot, and they pick up pretty solid yardage whenever they do. So that gives them an opportunity to get to some of those milestones. We're gonna jump over to the passing group, and quarterback play in the SWAC has not been spectacular, especially in terms of star power. There isn't a lot of star power at the quarterback position this season, and there's a lot of guys who are relatively young who are gonna be back in the future. So you're seeing guys kind of take that step. I think a guy like Makai Higgins, um, he would need a couple big games, like well over 300 yards in each game to cross that 3,000-yard mark. But he'll definitely cross the 2,500-yard mark. Possibly Saturday. I mean, it's gonna, they have an offense that throws the ball a lot, and so his numbers are definitely gonna have an opportunity to be there. They average 224 per game through the air, and he's basically been the only quarterback all season. So he has a really good chance. I mean, the team has 2,248 yards. He has 2,231 of those. So he has a really good chance to cross 2,500 yards in one game. So I think he's probably the closest thing to a guy. I think there's a true rising star at the quarterback position. He's had a really breakout season, and I know quarterbacks always come up in these discussions, but I think he's the guy to watch in the future to be a first team all conference guy. I mean, he should be that this season, because I think he's the most consistent quarterback in the conference in terms of passing. Other than maybe Daniel Richardson, who he's had some issues with some untimely interceptions, but he has a solid chance at 2,500 yards depending on his health. He got banged up against PV last week, so I don't know his status going into this game, but they have 3 games left. The Rattlers do, so he'll have an opportunity if he's healthy to be able to cross that 2,500-yard mark. And the way FAMU throws the ball, he'll get there. So he's another candidate for the 2,500-yard mark. And I would say if he's healthy, him and Higgins are locks for 2,500. I don't think either one of them could get to 1,000 unless they just have bananas type games. But 2,500 is still a solid mark in terms of quarterbacks because there hasn't, like I said, there hasn't really been a lot of guys who have put up great numbers this season in the passing game. So having two or three guys that have the opportunity to cross that 2,500 yard mark to me is big because you just don't have the names like you've had in recent years. But you have guys who are building names, and a lot of them are not playing full time, so their numbers aren't really great, and so they have the opportunity in the upcoming season to cross that mark. And I think it is a good chance that will happen. I did want to kind of take a look at where these teams were. Some of these guys were last season. We only had one guy last season cross the 2,500 yard mark. So having multiple guys be able to do it this season is to me a pretty good mark. Even though I think the passing games on most teams in the conference this season haven't really been that great. Um, like I said, last season Jeremy Musa was the only guy to cross 2,500 yards. Miles Crowley came close, and Aaron Allen came close, but they didn't get there. So this season you have for sure, if he's healthy, Richardson, and for sure Higgins, unless something happens. Jacoby Morgan is a guy he's interesting to me in that 2,500 yard group because Jackson State has a chance to play 4 games the rest of the season. Two games, regular season games, a championship game, and a possible celebration bowl. He's at 1637. It would take some big games from him. I think like 222 yards a game. I think I figured out, but he had that opportunity. If with the way their offense plays, I think that he had the opportunity to make that happen. Will he get there? That remains to be seen because they've been running the ball extremely well these last few weeks, and his passing numbers haven't been as high as they had been in previous weeks. But he has an outside chance at that, and he definitely has a chance at the 2,000 yard mark, which I think he'll get to. Cam Ransom's a guy who's interesting to me. He's probably one of the more unknown quarterbacks in the conference. A lot of people don't talk about him. His numbers are pretty solid. When you look at what he does on the season, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's at 1,428 yards, so he has a good chance in these last 2 games to get to 2,000 yards. And for a team that's possibly going to be 2-10, 3-9, that's really good because their offense just not is not the offense just has not been good statistically. But he's been having a good season, even though he's missed portions of games with injury and sometimes just swapping time with other quarterbacks. But he does have a chance there. Um, Depending on his health and the way their offense goes, Miles Crowley is an interesting case. They have 2 games left. Possibly could come back this week. Not sure. I know Coach Joseph said, they're going to test him real hard this week. Um, so he has a chance if he comes back if their passing game is working. He has a chance, but they've been running the ball extremely well, so I don't think he would get there. Xavier Vaughn's another guy with multiple games left outside of the regular season, one possible championship game if they make it. So he has a chance, but his passing numbers again haven't been that high that you can expect him to have multiple 200-yard games or whatever. So he has a chance to at least be a 1,500-yard passer. I don't think he can get to 1,000. And then other than that, you got a lot of guys. You got about 3 or 4 guys who have a chance to cross 1,500 yards, and they may get there. But I'm more looking at the guys in the 2K or better club. Receiving, you have first off, you have a couple guys, you have one guy who's already over 1,000 yards, and that's Giovanni Gibson. He's at 1075. He'll probably get to 12 or 1,300, depending on how his last 2 games go. And they've been, teams been defending him a little bit different these last few weeks, so his numbers haven't always been great like they had been, but he's still a huge threat for Pine Bluff. Nathan Rimbert's another guy. I think that's kind of a below the radar guy. He has 801 yards. He has a good chance to get to 1,000 in these last two games for Valley. And I think he's a potential first team all conference guy. I mean, I know a lot of people don't really know him because he plays for Valley, but he's been putting up solid numbers in an offense that's not a great passing offense, to say it mildly. I mean, they've been average, which is above what most of their offensive numbers are. But I think he's been a really huge part of that, and I think he has an opportunity to do it with games against FAMU, which they'll probably be passing a lot because they're probably going to be behind, and Alabama A&M, which again could possibly be one of those games where they have to kind of pass a lot in that game. So he has a chance to get there. Jamari Gassett with a couple big games would really, they have 3 games left. So, 3 huge games. He could probably get there, but I think he'll cross 750. Keenan Hambrick, again, extreme outside chance at 1,000, but he does have a good chance at 750. And then you have guys like Fortillion and Savage if he's healthy, Spencer, Robinson, and James Burns, who is a very interesting case to me. Um, he's been having big plays the last couple weeks of the season. He's a guy who can cross that 750 mark for sure the 500-yard mark. If he continues to be that big play guy in the PB offense, he can catch fire because he's had 80-yard touchdowns, 75-yard touchdowns, 70-yard touchdowns. So he's a guy who can do that, and he's done it in limited action because he had been out for a while. So those are the guys who have a chance. I would say you have about 4 guys who have 5 guys who have a chance to cross 500 for sure. You have 2 guys who have a chance to cross 750 for sure, and 1 guy who has a chance to cross eight. I mean, who has a chance to cross 1,000 for sure to join Giovanni Gibson. And actually, when you look back at last season, just for comparison's sake, we had the leading guy in terms of yardage in the conference was Keyshawn Johnson. He had 829 yards. That number's already been surpassed and is going to be surpassed again by Rimbert. And he had 61 catches to lead the league. And that number is going to be passed by Gibson on probably Saturday because they, like I said, they throwing the ball a lot. He needs 6 catches to pass that mark. He'll pass that 61-yard mark, 61 reception mark, and Rimbert should pass it too because he has 58 receptions. So the passing, even though to me the passing games haven't seemed that great, there's some receivers that are making great plays this season, and I think those are guys who are gonna be able to really shine because some of those guys are still young, so they'll be able to shine in future seasons. Looking at the tackle mark, of course, 100 tackles is, kind of like where you like to look at. And Andrew Jones should get there from Grambling. He should get there this week. He needs 3 tackles to cross 100, and I mean he's averaging almost 10 tackles a game. So he has a chance for like 120 tackles with an average couple of games. So he has a chance to have a solid 120 125 tackle season, and he's probably going to win the tackling crown by almost 30 tackles because he at least 20 tackles because he right now he leads that. He has a 20 tackle lead over Rico Dozier, who has a chance with 3 games left to cross the 100 tackle mark. Marion Edwards also has a chance to cross it, and Vince Page also has a chance. All those guys are averaging over 7 tackles a game. Southern has a possible 3 games. Alcorn has a possible 3 games. Bama State has 3 games left, so those guys have a chance. Guys like Cunningham from Bama State, Andrews from Alabama A&M, Javis Williams, and Raymond Woody, they have a chance, but it would take a couple big tackle games for them to get there. They'll definitely cross the 75 tackle mark. Also, guys like Eric Campbell, Jaden Kelly, Kevin Washington, and maybe Charlton Quarles will cross that mark, that 75 tackle mark as well. So there's a good chance of guys putting up some nice tackle numbers. You look at sacks, double digit sacks is always the mark. 10 is always the mark. So Joshua Nobles has 9. He has the opportunity to get the. He's almost averaging a sack a game. So he had, any game that they play, he has a chance to register that 10th sack. Traquan Thomas is at 7.5. He has a chance with 3 games left. Kelby Givens also with 3 games left has 7 sacks, and Malachi Bailey has 7 sacks. So all those guys have a chance to cross that double digit mark. Not saying they all will, but they all have a good chance. A guy like E.K. Brown from Bethune Cookman, he has 5 sacks right now. It would take almost a 3 sack game in the next 2 3 sack games to get there, or at least 2.5 sack games to cross that mark. And I mean, it's not impossible, but that's kind of a tough ask for a guy automatically. So those are some of the numbers that I wanted to kind of look at. And also I wanted to kind of take a quick glance into who guys I think may be considered for especially the offensive and defensive player of the year. Freshman of the year, I think, is Terrell from Jackson State. I mean, the kid's an all-purpose guy. Um, he can hurt you on the ground. He leads the league and he leads the league in all-purpose yardage per game with 121 yards per game. He has almost 500 yards in kick returns, almost 200 in punt returns. He has 74 receiving yards and 345 on the ground. And he's a threat to break any time he touches the ball. He has a huge threat to break it. So I will put him as my freshman of the year. I think my newcomer of the year would probably be if you're not going to put him at offensive player of the year, which I think it's tough for receivers to win that award. Giovanni Gibson should be the newcomer of the year for sure. Um, I think I mean with the season he's had, I think he should be in consideration um offensive player of the year. But you know, it's kind of tough for a guy that doesn't play on a team that wins a lot of games to probably win that award. But he has a good chance to me to be there. But I think he'll be more a newcomer of the year. Um, Offensive player of the year, you have a few guys. I mean, I'm always partial to Herb Mulligan. I think he should have been the preseason all conference. I mean, preseason player of the year on offense. But I think he has a good chance to get it. Again, there's no, depending on the finish, Jacoby Morgan has a chance to be offensive player of the year if he has a strong finish. Quarterback on the best team, always going to get consideration. Daniel Richardson, if he's healthy, he's gonna put up some big numbers in the remaining games if he's healthy. He has a good chance. And Mekhi Higgins, I really think has a great chance. Other than the fact that people are gonna look at his team's record, and that's always gonna be held against the guy. But I think he's statistically the top quarterback in the conference right now. Now, is he the best quarterback in the league as a whole? That remains to be seen. He does have some issues, with taking sacks and taking some bad losses, but he's pretty efficient. I mean, he only has 5 interceptions, considering he's thrown the ball 283 times, and he's throwing to the best receiver in the conference. So they have one of the top passing attacks, and they're big. Those two are a big reason why Pine Bluff has won the games that they've won. So I think he should get consideration. I don't know if he'll, I don't know if people are going to hold that Pine Bluff record against him, but I think he has the opportunity to be that guy. When you look at defensively, I think it's um, I think it's not a lot of guys who are head and shoulders above everybody else. But of course, you have Joshua Nobles. I think he has a good chance to be there, being that he's been a huge sack guy. Kelby Givens, who was the preseason player of the year, I think he's having a solid season. Don't know if he's having that that defensive player of the year season because he's getting a lot of attention that he normally doesn't that he didn't get in previous years because this season he's dug out on the offense, but he does have 16 tackles for loss. And he's been a big disruptive guy in a lot of ways that numbers won't show. Malachi Bailey is another guy I think has a good chance. He also has 6.5, 16 tackles for loss, which ties for the conference lead. He also has 7.5 sacks, I think, or is it seven? He has 7 sacks. And so he's a guy who can be in the mix. Andrew Jones is a guy who is a tackling machine. He has 97 tackles right now. He has 2 sacks. I think he's going to finish with 125, 130 tackles on the way he's been playing. So I think he has a good chance. He leads the league in tackles for loss at 16. So he's having a great season. I think he definitely should be probably the front runner. A guy like Rico Dozier who can be in the mix. But right now, I would say Jones, Nobles, Givens, and Bailey, and maybe Dozier or Traquan Thomas. Those guys are in the mix there. So I just kind of wanted to go over what my early thoughts were on that. Of course, we still have a few games left. We got like 2 weeks of football, 3 weeks of football left. Guys can rise and fall in that time, but we'll keep our eyes on these kind of things. And as guys cross these marks, we'll shout them out. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the Swag Seawells signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.